Dear learners, welcome you all to e-learning platform. In this week we will learn a new lesson, a new poem written by Sylvia Plath, the British poet of the modern era, who wrote and dedicated this poem to her father. So this is Faisal Ahmed, faculty member, Department of English, World University of Bangladesh. Let's begin. In this lesson you will learn about the poem Daddy by Sylvia Plath, symbolism and allusions in the poem, Daddy as a confessional poem, major themes of the poem, analysis of the poem, right? So Daddy by Sylvia Plath, some quotable quotes from the poem. The first stanza in the poem is like, you do not do any more, black shoe, in which I have lived like a food for 30 years, poor and white, barely daring to breathe or echo. Says there are a dozen or two, so I never could tell where you put your foot, your root, I never could talk to you, the tongue stuck in my jaw. Sylvia Plath's poem Daddy remains one of the most controversial modern poems ever written. It is a dark, surreal, and at times painful allegory that uses metaphor and other devices to carry the idea of a female victim finally freeing herself from her father. Daddy was written on October 12, 1962, a month after Plath had separated from her husband, Ted Hughes, and moved with their two small children from their home in Devon to a flat apartment in London. 4 months later, Plath was dead, but she wrote some of her best poems during that turbulent period. Analysis of Daddy. Daddy is an attempt to combine the personal with the mythical. It's unsettling, a weird nursery rhyme of the divided self, a controlled blast aimed at a father and a husband, since the two conflate in the 14th stanza of the poem. The poem expresses Plath's terror and pain lyrically and hauntingly. It combines light echoes of a Mother Goose nursery rhyme with much darker resonances of Second World War. The father is seen as a black shoe, a bag full of God, a cold marble statue, a Nazi, a Swastika, a fascist, a sadistic brute, and a vampire. The girl, narrator, or the speaker of the poem is obsessed and maddened by her idolization of this man. She is a victim trapped in that black tomb-like shoe, in the sack that holds the father's bones. And in a sense, in the train as it chugs along to Auschwitz, Daddy is full of disturbing imagery. And that's why some have called Daddy the Guernica of modern poetry. Poetic devices, symbolism, and structure of the poem Daddy by Sylvia Plath. The poem is 16 stanzas, each with 5 lines, making a total of 8 lines. The meter is roughly tetrameter, 4 beats, but also uses pentameter with a mix of stresses. 37 lines are end-stopped and enjambment is frequently used. Metaphor and simile are present, as are half rhymes, alliteration, and assonance. The father is compared to a black shoe, a bag full of God, a giant, cold, marble statue, a Nazi, a Swastika, a fascist, a sadist, and a vampire. Poetic devices symbolism and structure of the daddy continues. The speaker uses baby talk to describe truly dark and painful feelings. She calls him daddy. She calls a sneeze aku, gobbledygoo. She gets tongue-tied and stammery, each, and uses sing-song repetitions. The juxtaposition of innocence and pain emphasizes both. There's also the howling, mournful choo-choo sound of a steam train throughout. You do not do, you do not do. Aku, black shoe, glue, you do. I do, shoe, two, screw, through, gobbledygoo, Jew, blue. So this repeated ooh sound gives the poem momentum, energy, and conjures up the image of a train chuffing its way to the final destination, which in this case is a Nazi death camp. Alludes to the Second World War, Germany. This poem is full of surreal imagery and allusion interspersed with scenes from the poet's childhood and a kind of dark cinematic language that borrows from nursery rhyme and song lyric. Every so often, German is used, reflecting the fact that Plath's father Otto was from Germany and must have spoken in this language to Sylvia in her childhood. Daddy as a confessional poetry. Although we can't say that the speaker is Plath herself, Daddy is a quintessential example of confessional poetry, which is very emotional and autobiographical in nature. This confessional subjective style of writing became popular in the late 50s to early 60s. Stanza by stanza analysis of Plath's Daddy. Stanza 1, a first line repeated declaration of intent, the first sounds of ooh. This is the train setting off on its final death march. The black shoe is a metaphor for the father inside, trapped for 30 years, is the narrator about to escape. Second stanza, but she can only free herself by killing her daddy, who does resemble the poet's actual father Otto, who died when she was 8. His toe turned black from gangrene. He eventually had to have his leg amputated due to complications of diabetes. When young Plath heard this news, she said, I will never speak to God again. Here the bizarre, surreal imagery builds up. His toe is as big as a seal, and the grotesque image of her father has fallen like a statue. Third stanza of the poem, the personal weaves in and out of the allegory. The statue's head is in the Atlantic on the coast at Nauset Beach, Cape Cod, where the Plath family used to holiday. The father icon stretches across the USA. The imagery is temporarily beautiful. Bean green over blue water. The speaker says she used to pray to get her father back, restored to health. Fourth stanza, we move on to Poland and Second World War. There's a mix of the factual and fictional. Otto Plath, the father of Sylvia Plath, was born in Grabow, Poland, the common name, but spoke German in a typical autocratic fashion. This town has been raised in many wars, adding strength to the idea that Germany, the father, has demolished life. Fifth stanza again. The narrator addresses the father as you, a direct address which brings the reader closer to the action. I never could talk to you seems to come right from the daughter's heart. Plath is hinting at a lack of communication, instability, and paralysis. Note the use of the line endings to you and you, the train building up momentum. Sixth stanza, the use of barbed wire snare ratchets up the tension. The narrator is in pain for the first time. The German I is repeated 4 times as if her sense of self-worth is in question. Or is she recalling the father shouting, I? And is she unable to speak because of the shock or just difficulty with the language? The father is seen as an all-powerful icon representing all Germans. Seventh stanza, as the steam engine chugs on, the narrator reveals that this is no ordinary train she is on. It is a death train taking her off to a concentration camp of Germany, one of the Nazi death factories where millions of Jews are cruelly gassed and cremated during the Second World War. The narrator now identifies fully with the Jews. Eighth stanza, moving on into Austria, the country where Plath's mother was born. The narrator reinforces her identity. She is a bit of a Jew because she carries a tarot pack of cards and has gypsy blood in her. Perhaps she is a fortune teller able to predict the fate of people. Plath was keenly interested in the tarot card symbols. Some believe that certain poems in her book Ariel use similar occult symbology. Ninth stanza. Although Plath's father was never a Nazi in real life, a narrator again focuses on the Second World War and the image of the Nazi soldier. Part nonsense nursery rhyme, part dark lyrical attack. The girl describes the ideal Aryan male. One of the aims of the Nazis was to breed out unwanted genetic strains to produce the perfect German and Aryan. This one happens to speak gobbledygook, a play on the word gobbledygook, meaning excessive use of technical terms. The Luftwaffe is the German Air Force. Panzer is the name for the German tank corps. 10th stanza, yet another metaphor, father as a swastika, the ancient Indian symbol used by the Nazis. In this instance, the swastika is so big it blacks out the entire sky. This could be a reference to the air raids over England during the war when the Luftwaffe bombed many cities and turned the sky black. Lines 48 to 50 are controversial but probably allude to the fact that powerful despotic males, brutes in boots, often demand the attraction of female victims. 11th stanza, perhaps the most personal of stanzas, this image breaks through into the poem and the reader is taken into a kind of classroom. Her father Otto was a teacher. Her daddy stands. The devil is supposed to have a cleft foot, but here he has a cleft chin. The narrator isn't fooled. 12th stanza, she knows that this is the man who tore her apart, reached inside and left her split, a divided self. Sylvia's father died when she was 8, filling her with rage against God and at 20, Plath attempted suicide for the first time. Did she want to reunite with her father? Stanza 13, a crucial stanza where the girl creates male number 2 based on the father. The narrator is pulled out of the sack and they stick her back together with glue. Bones out of a sack. Sylvia Plath was glued back together by doctors after she failed her suicide attempt but was never the same again. In the poem, this suicide attempt is a catalyst for action. The girl creates a model, a voodoo-like doll, a version of her father. This replica strongly resembles Plath's husband, Ted Hughes. He has a Mein Kampf look. Mein Kampf is the title of Adolf Hitler's book, which means my struggle, and is not averse to tortures. 14th stanza, Sylvia Plath and Ted Hughes were married, hence the line with I do, the speaker addresses Daddy again. For the last time, there will be no more communication, no voices from the past. Note the emphasis on black again. This telephone belongs to the father. 15th stanza, the penultimate 5 lines. The speaker has achieved her double killing. Both father and husband have been dispatched. The latter is referred to as a vampire who has been drinking her blood for 7 years. It's as if the narrator is reassuring her father that all is well now. He can lie back in readiness for what? 16th stanza. The father's fat black heart is pierced by a wooden stake, just like a vampire, and the villagers are thoroughly happy about it. A bit of a bizarre image to end on. But just who are the villagers? Are they the inhabitants of a village in the allegory, or are they collective of Sylvia Plath's imagination? Either way, the father's demise has them dancing and stamping on him almost jovially. To put the lead on things, the girl declares Daddy a bastard. The exorcism is over and the conflict resolved. So this is the last stanza of the poem, stanza 16. So now we go through Plath's Electra complex. In psychoanalysis, an Electra complex is the female version of Freud's Oedipus complex. Oedipus complex is the relationship between mother and son, and Plath's Electra complex is the relationship between father and daughter. Jung posited that daughter perceives her mother as a rival for the psychosexual energy of her father and wants to possess the father. This unresolved desire sometimes manifests as negative fixation on the father or father figure. As the poem progresses, the narrator identifies herself with the plight of the Jews during the Nazi regime in Germany. There are many direct references to the Holocaust in the poem. So here now we are discussing about Daddy and the Holocaust. The reference of Holocaust in the poem Daddy. Why does the poet use such a metaphor? Does it take things one step too far? Is it acceptable to use such an event to drive home a personal message of pain and torment? Is it okay to appropriate someone else's pain? Using the nightmarish scenario of the Holocaust as a metaphor for the daughter's relationship with her German father, the step into historical depth and meaning. The poem is ironically depersonalized and taken beyond mere confession into archetypal father-daughter pathos. Sylvia Plath has risked all by introducing the Holocaust into the poem. Only her astute use of rhythm, rhyme and lyric allows her to get away with it. The trial of H. Men in the Second World War. Sylvia Plath undoubtedly knew about the final solution of the Nazis in the Second World War. The trial of Adolf Eichmann lasted from April 11, 1961 to December 15, 1961 and was shown on television, allowing the whole world to witness the horrors of the Holocaust. Plath wrote Daddy the following year as a leading instigator of death. As a leading instigator of death in the concentration camp gas chambers, the SS Lieutenant Colonel became notorious as the desk murderer. He was found guilty by trial in Jerusalem, Israel, and sentenced to hang to death. That's all about the poem Daddy. So here you can see the portraits of Sylvia Plath and her father Otto Plath. Sylvia Plath's father Otto Plath standing in front of blackboard. 1930, you stand like Sylvia Plath quoted from Sylvia Plath, you stand at the blackboard, Daddy. In the picture I have of you, a cleft in your chin instead of your food, but no less a devil for that, from Daddy. So that's all. Thank you very much. Goodbye. Next week with new lesson. Until then, goodbye again.